What is up, everybody? Excited for today's video. This is the second time this year we are going to be doing positional power rankings. And this isn't so much like, say, my traditional tier maker type of videos where I'm talking about what players I'd rather take in a vacuum moving forward. No, this is more about reflecting on this season and celebrating who's had the better years this year. So today we're going to be doing quarterbacks and edge rushers. And I will say, if you want to know more about like my quarterback rankings, I will be doing a quarterback tier maker video talking about where I'd take every quarterback moving forward. I'll be doing that very soon, within the next couple weeks. So make sure you're subscribed up for that. And for my regular subscribers looking for studs and duds, I know we were scheduled to get to the NFC this week. I'm going to wait until the regular season has concluded, and then I should have time to do NFC and AFC following week 18. So we're going to go ahead and get into it. If you enjoy, please do hit that like button. It really does help me out. Takes just a second, so thank you. And let's go. Now, I will say this list was really hard to put together. This has been a strange year. A lot of the guys you would typically see in a top 10 list like that just aren't here right now. The season's been flipped on its head. Russell Wilson's been like legit a bottom 5 to 10 quarterback this year. Stafford's been out. We've had guys injured like Dak and Lamar. Tough to know what to do with that. Guys like Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers not playing up to their standards. So a fun season to really look back on this, and it's going to maybe go down in our memories as a weird year for quarterbacks. So anyway, let's get into it. Number 10 was really tough deciding who gets this spot, but I just ended up coming down to who I think has played the best out of the guys I considered. And we'll show the honorable mentions in a little bit of who got snubbed here. But I am going to go with Lamar Jackson. He has missed time, and we absolutely do consider missed games in the equation here. But when you look at how well he played before the injury, you look at what the Ravens have been after he went down, I just think he's got to be on this list. I think he's been one of the 10 best quarterbacks in the 2022 NFL season. He's had the big-time throws. He's definitely offered what you'd expect from him as a runner. He's had big moments, and it's just they need him. They need him back. I hope he can get back for the playoffs. I saw that timeline is not looking great. Could just not be the Ravens' year. But as far as how he was playing, even if a little bit streaky at times, Lamar, to me, deserves to get just into this list at number 10. Because, if we did this 4 weeks ago, right after his injury, he would have been 6 or 7 on this list. So the injury obviously knocking him down. Then number 9 is going to be Tom Brady. Now, there's definitely a little bit of disappointment factor with some of these guys that you'd expect to be 3rd or 4th on this list. But when you really stack up the numbers and watch Tom Brady's tape, he's still been a top 10 quarterback this year. Now, there's been more missed throws than we're used to seeing with Tom Brady. I do think in the last few weeks, especially with Tristan Wirfs going down, he's been pressing a little bit too much. You're seeing many more mistakes than you're used to seeing with him. You can see there the 20 turnover-worthy plays. That's that TWP number right there, by the way. But he's still putting up gaudy numbers. He's got 21 touchdowns to 9 interceptions, and he's still magically, I can't really say magically because it's very lucky that they're in the playoff picture, but let's put it this way. I would hate to see what that Bucs team looks like without Tom Brady, who still, even when he makes a mistake, comes right back swinging, just keeps on punching. He's like a boxer that's down bad that just stays in the fight, and it's helped them win a ton of games, and he's had those clutch moments. Mike Evans has not been Mike Evans. Chris Godwin has said himself has not been Chris Godwin. The offensive line is in shambles. They have no run game. Tom Brady has still impressed me in certain ways this year, even if he hasn't been that top 3 elite quarterback that we're used to him being. Then at number 8, talk about not being used to somebody playing like this. Geno Smith is going to crack the top 8 here. And I'll be honest, man, if we did this 4 weeks ago, he would have been inside the top 4. Geno Smith, for the first half of the season, was playing like an MVP type of candidate and was roaring with the Seattle Seahawks, had them in the playoff picture when myself and many people viewed them as a potential contender for the number 1 overall pick. And that's not the case. Now, here's the deal with Geno, because we've seen the highlights. I made a video on him when he was on that hot streak. We can see the stats. The deal is the last, 5-6 weeks, it has fallen off for Geno. Now, he hasn't gone all the way back to being that backup caliber guy that we thought he was. He's still been a good quarterback, going back to probably like that after the Chargers game, I would say. But the problem is he's putting the ball in harm's way too much, and that has been a problem with Geno Smith over this time. He is second on this list in turnover-worthy plays, and it's showing the last few weeks. And you do have to ding a quarterback for that. Taking care of the football is a major part of the quarterback's responsibility, and in a situation where the offensive line's played worse, Tyler Lockett missing last week, and the defense being as bad as it is, he has had to press, but in those moments, he hasn't exactly delivered. So I do need to credit Geno, who's had an excellent season. I can't wait to see where this contract situation goes, but you also got to admit, it has fallen off as of late. Then number 7, Aaron Rodgers, still going to make this list. Very similar conversation to what we said about Tom Brady. You expect the back-to-back MVP to look like the best quarterback in the NFL, and certainly he has not played like an MVP, and he has not played up to his $50 million standards. Now, you also need to consider the fact that he has played the majority of this season since that Giants game with a broken thumb, and I think when you look at a guy who is still second in the NFL in the percentage of his throws that are deemed big-time throws, that's what that BTT is there on the stat sheet, you can still see the highlight plays. You look at him against Miami last week, throwing dimes. The accuracy and the arm talent, the physical ability, it's still there with Aaron Rodgers. So I do think it's reasonable to say that a guy that's won back-to-back MVPs that still shows the high-end play, yeah, maybe a broken thumb was hurting his accuracy, and that was a big part of his struggles on that losing streak. Now, you also have to note he is second behind just Lamar Jackson in drop pass percentage. The offensive line really struggled out the gate, and of course, the wide receiver situation, possibly the worst in the league, until Christian Watson really emerged from that injury. And since then, we're seeing Aaron Rodgers play, maybe not in an MVP level, but certainly well enough to get himself back into this list. He's still offering that excellent ratio of the big throws to taking care of the football. It's always been really Aaron Rodgers' calling card. They're waging to go on a little bit of a run here, gets a kind of a redemption opportunity with him and Christian Watson against the Vikings here in a couple days. So I still think Aaron Rodgers is playing as a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. Many people will tell you he hasn't, but I think other than Lamar Jackson, probably the worst surrounding situation of anybody on this list. Maybe Justin Herbert, who is coming, could be in that conversation as well, but he's got the Packers alive and going to make the list. Now, Aaron Rodgers is not going to be the highest ranking quarterback in the NFC North here, and that's the first time in like a decade that we would probably say that. Kirk Cousins is going to rank 6th on this list for performance this season. I got to give a tip of the cap to Kirk, man. He is really hanging in there, making some big-time throws. Under pressure is really where it stood out. He's been more aggressive, and his comfort within this offense, you really saw it right away. And the O'Connell offense is essentially the same scheme that he's been running for years in Minnesota. So he's just reached a very high level of comfort within this offense. And what I'm really talking about there is when the blitz is in his face, when the pressure gets in, it's the little stuff that he does really well. It's knowing where those throwing windows are going to be. It's knowing when and where to hit his checkdowns. He's even scrambled at a decent rate this year. Now, some of that aggressiveness has led to an uptick in the amount of times he's putting the ball in harm's way, but I'd much rather have this version of Kirk that's honestly playing much more like a Tom Brady. I know that sounds crazy, but that's been a big thing with Brady. Now, Kirk doesn't have that natural poise in the pocket, that pocket presence that Brady does, but he's doing some of the same stuff as far as not taking as many sacks and getting that ball out, which has been a huge difference for Kirk. It's allowed them to win games in these big-time moments. It's allowing Justin Jefferson to thrive because Kirk is giving him a chance on plays where maybe in years past he would be holding onto the ball too long and taking a sack. So Kirk's been awesome. The Vikings have nailed the NFC North this year, and I'm excited to see what this version of Kirk can do in January here for the playoffs. Now, we are going to get into some honorable mentions before we crack the top 5. Andy Dalton, got to be on this list. And honestly, if you just take him throw for throw, he's been one of the 10 best quarterbacks in the NFL. But there is a lack of playing time there. Not only did he not start for the first few weeks, but he splits time with Taysom Hill. And it's hard to kind of separate some of the schematic stuff they do with Taysom to help Andy Dalton. But honestly, on third downs, Dalton's been dropping dimes. He's been using his feet. He is currently, I think he's the third highest rated quarterback per PFF right now in passer grades. So the sample size is small. They do it in a weird way, but Andy Dalton has legit been fantastic this year, so he deserves a mention. Dak Prescott, he's kind of right there with Lamar. He's played very well this season. I get a lot of crap from Cowboys fans because I disagree with where the narrative is at on Dak Prescott, because I think a lot of people try to say Dak is a Justin Herbert level quarterback, or say what Matthew Stafford was last year, that tier 2 great quarterback. I don't think that's Dak. I think Dak is much closer to guys like Ryan Tannehill, Kirk Cousins, Derek Carr. He might be better than those guys. That's where I get crap on Dak. I think the conversation on him is off. But again, we have guys like Kirk Cousins in the top 10 here. So if Dak had played the full season, probably would have snuck in there somewhere in this list. Obviously has the Cowboys in a great position right now for a team that was 5-1 without him, though. So Dak's not going to make the top 10 quite there. Trevor Lawrence on my list of honorable mentions. He's been up and down. Great to start. Really rough kind of second quarter of the season, and then back to playing like a top 10 quarterback. I struggled to keep him off this list. I wanted to put him on there, but the consistency hasn't quite been there enough to put him over, say, Lamar Jackson. And then Tua, a dramatic fall. I was kind of putting this list together about 3-4 weeks ago, just kind of brainstorming a little bit where this might be, and Tua was in the top 5, but what he's done in the last month has been unwatchable. I mean, he's putting the ball in harm's way. He's missing throws, losing games. It's been ugly, man. He has gone right back to all of the concerns we had about Tua coming into the season based on the tape of how he played in his first 2 years. Now, some of his anticipatory throws and his comfort within this offense, he's still definitely a better quarterback. I feel much better about Tua than I did coming into the year, where I wasn't even sure if he was a starting caliber guy. You can't just ignore everything he's done on the year, and that's why he's an honorable mention. But you also can't ignore that he's put this film out there in his first 2 seasons, and now the last few weeks, it's been pretty much the same guy. So hard to know exactly what to do with Tua. Also, just please get healthy. The concussion stuff scares the shit out of me. I hope he can get back on the field and continue to impress, because he really has impressed overall on the season. Let me interrupt the video real quick to tell you about my friends at Underdog Fantasy. Underdog has gotten me right back into daily fantasy, and I'm sure you guys have all seen the screenshots going around of people enjoying their daily pick'em contests. At Underdog, you're only competing against yourself, unlike the salary cap leagues where you have to beat out thousands and thousands of people. Well, on Underdog, you are just picking 2 to 5 player props, anything from over/under receiving yards, interceptions, fantasy points, and you're parlaying them together. You can also buy insurance so that you're allowed to miss on one of your picks, and the payouts are huge. If you go 5 out of 5, that is 20 to 1. Buy insurance, that's 10 to 1. So you can put $2, $3, $4, $5 on any one of these given bets, and the payouts are outstanding. So even if you don't win, it feels like you're winning because it increases your interest in any given football game. I have loved playing on Underdog Fantasy. I think you guys are too. And now if you sign up using promo code TFG, they will match up to $100 on your first deposit. That's promo code TFG at Underdog Fantasy. All right, let's talk about our number 5 quarterback. We've hinted at him a couple times, but Justin Herbert, who's definitely heating up. And let's revisit that list because I think it's interesting that I had, 3-4 weeks ago, Herbert was 10th, and he had been fine. I think he had kept that team alive when his surrounding situation was really rough. But you're seeing now Mike Williams back healthy, Keenan Allen back healthy. You're seeing him play at least like the quarterback we thought him to be coming into the year, and that was somewhere around QB 4 to 6. And I definitely think this is a reasonable spot for him. You're seeing those beautiful throws down the field. He's still taking care of the football at a high level, and we've seen some very clutch moments from him. Justin Herbert is the lone reason, along with Brandon Staley making some good defensive adjustments, that the Chargers will be in the playoffs. I can't wait to see what Herbert can look like. Maybe Bosa comes back, helps that defense reach new levels, and maybe Rashawn Slater sneaks back into the lineup. This could get interesting really quickly with Justin Herbert. They're getting healthy at the right time. But most importantly, he's playing well. And even if this wasn't the, I would say, breakout season for Justin Herbert, I know that sounds weird to say, he's already broken out, but there was, hopes that maybe he could reach that Patrick Mahomes level of quarterbacking in that AFC West. That hasn't happened, but overall, he's at least played up to standards, coming in number 5 on the list. Then at number 4, I have Jalen Hurts, and I think some Eagles fans will be mad about this. You look at the MVP voting. He's, I think, still second, although he may have been passed up recently. But I do think we're factoring everything in here. We're factoring in the film. We're factoring in the surrounding cast, the raw numbers. And when you really piece it all together, I still think he comes below our next 3 quarterbacks, but that is not a disrespect to Jalen Hurts. He has shattered expectations. He has taken the football world by storm. I made a video about him, I think after week 4, really praising him and saying I'm done saying there's a cap on how good he could be, because he has gotten better and better and better every single year. He's been remarkable. And you also can't ignore what he brings as a runner, where his threat and the numbers advantage he brings to the table there does bring value to the Eagles. I would just say if you are disappointed in him coming in 4th, which you really shouldn't be. I mean, I never thought he would make this list coming into the year. But it is a ridiculous surrounding cast. We saw what those guys do, those receivers, that O-line with Gardner Minshew in there. I think the play calling's been phenomenal. They've had defensive support. I think you put these other 3 quarterbacks on the Eagles, and this thing looks even more ridiculous. And also just the raw numbers aren't as good, honestly, as some of these other guys. As we get to our number 3 quarterback, Josh Allen, right? Allen has more explosive plays, more yardage, more touchdowns. Now, he is putting the ball in harm's way more, so you could make an argument there, but Allen brings just as much to the table as a runner as Jalen Hurts, and he doesn't have as good of an offensive line. So it's just tough for me to say that Jalen Hurts has actually been a better quarterback than Josh Allen this year. But I will say this with Josh Allen. He is going to be passed up by Joe Burrow here as of how they've played this season. These guys play on Monday Night Football. I think it's time to have this conversation. As I'll just reveal this, Joe Burrow is going to be number 2. These guys play on Monday night, and it's going to be a battle. Both guys have been incredible. I'm not trying to talk down on either of these guys, but I do think it is realistically time to have a conversation on who's the better quarterback behind these 2 guys. Obviously, Josh Allen does crazy shit. He does stuff that no one in the NFL can do. I am on the record, and I will stand by it, saying he is the most physically talented or gifted quarterback I've ever seen. The combination of size, speed, arm talent, it's absurd. Now, you see that there, leading the league in turnover-worthy plays, turnover-worthy play percentage. He is an aggressive MF, and it hasn't really cost them because he's so consistently able to make those crazy plays and lead these, he can make 3 mistakes in a quarter and then come back and it doesn't really matter. But is this going to show up in the playoffs? That's something to keep an eye on. Is this going to show up Monday night? Because if you're doing that against the Bears and, whoever, it's fine. But if you're doing this stuff against the Chiefs, and in that matchup against the Chiefs, to his credit, he took much better care of the football and avoided those mistakes. So that's what I'm curious to see. But this has always been a criticism of Josh Allen. But in that run, really from, I would say, week 15 last year through the playoffs until week 4 or 5 this year, really up until that Chiefs game, Josh Allen was not creating 2 or 3 turnover-worthy plays per game like he has gone back to doing. So it is really something to monitor. We myself, and basically the entire football world, rushed to the table to say Josh Allen is the best quarterback in the NFL. I pushed back on that in the offseason, but after the Chiefs game, I said it. I said, okay, Josh Allen took the crown. Now he lost that crown almost immediately to our number one quarterback, Patrick Mahomes. But I just think it's a very fascinating conversation is can he rein things in here as we approach January and fulfill his destiny in a lot of ways to be this remarkable best quarterback in the NFL. We got to talk about Joe Burrow, who does come in number 2 here. I've just been blown away with where Joe Burrow is at as a quarterback. And you really, I think, have to look from week 5 on when they changed their offense. And those that have been following this channel really since Burrow got to Cincinnati, this has been the realization of something I've been saying about the Bengals for a long time. You know, Zach Taylor comes from the Shanahan-McVay system. He wants to be under center, wide zone offense, run the ball, take play action shots. Joe Burrow comes from spread, get the ball out, quick game, empty offense, use that brain of his to be that methodical decision maker that he was in college and is today, and let him improvise and play from the pocket more often. And as of week 5, they completely flipped the script. I talked about it the week after, and they have stuck to it. They've blown their playbook up and gone completely different offense. Way more shotgun, way more quick game, way more gap offense, as opposed to the wide zone stuff that Zach Taylor stems from, coming from Sean McVay. And ever since they made that change, I think you can make a very strong case Joe Burrow has been the best quarterback in the NFL ahead of Patrick Mahomes. You see the 14 turnover-worthy plays there. 9 of those came in those first 5 games. I said week 5 for the Saints. It was week 6. 9 of those 14 turnover-worthy plays came in the first 5 weeks of the season. So since then, Joe Burrow has 23 big-time throws to 5 turnover-worthy plays. They're on this rapid win streak. They adapt all over the place because Joe Burrow can beat you in any given way. He's got this incredible pocket presence. My pre-draft pro comp on Joe Burrow has reached that. In that I said he is Aaron Rodgers from the waist down as far as pocket presence, play extension, mobility, and Tom Brady from the waist up when it comes to anticipation. You're seeing those same tight window throws into like tight zone windows that Tom Brady always makes. The anticipation, the accuracy, the ability to get the ball out. Burrow is incredible. So he takes this number 2 spot. I'm not going to say the winner of Monday night's game solidifies who the better quarterback is between the two. There's way too much to consider on top of that. But it has reached a conversation here that I don't think anybody was prepared for coming into the year with how the conversation was on Josh Allen. Now, number 1 quarterback is Patrick Mahomes. The full scale on how he's played this season, start to finish, he's blowing it out of the water, really. The yardage, the highlight plays, the winning. He's not, putting the ball in harm's way at a Josh Allen level. He's doing a pretty good job there playing in structure. He's still going to take some risks. He's going to have some boneheaded mistakes. It's just a part of his game, but it's not nearly at that clip that Josh Allen does it, where it's like twice a week at this point. Mahomes, it's like maybe once every week, once or twice every other week. It's not a back-breaking amount. And some of the stuff he does with his legs is just insane. So Mahomes is still QB1, and he deserves to be the MVP this year. I know Jalen Hurts has a strong case for it, but I mean, it's Mahomes, man. He is the most valuable player in the NFL. It's a little bit of that LeBron James voter fatigue, in my opinion. It's really not much of a debate for me. So there's your quarterbacks. Make sure you guys drop your comments down below where you agree, where you disagree with that list. And now we're going to move on to the edge rush group. And I just want to clarify some of these stats you're going to see here. So you got pressure rate is going to show up here. That is pretty self-explanatory. That is the percentage of their pass rush snaps that result in a pressure on the quarterback. And then you'll see win percentage. I took the ones from true pass sets, which I think are more meaningful. Those are 3-step, 5-step, 7-step drops, real pass rush opportunities. What is their win percentage on those snaps? All from PFF. So the number 10 pass rusher, edge rusher in the league for me this season is Trey Hendrickson. Bengals got to get him back. Making this list shows you how much they're going to need him. He has continued to really impress. I thought they overpaid him from New Orleans. The Bengals have just been killing it with free agency in general, but he burst onto the scene last year in his first year as a full-time starter, and following it up as a dominant pass rusher. I would say a low-end number 1 guy, and just crushing it, man. They got to get him back. Then number 9, Matthew Judon. So Judon, I tweeted after, I think week 9, like right at the midseason point, that he is a candidate for Defensive Player of the Year based on the idea that, TJ Watt wins it last year, not because he led the league in pressures or win percentage, because he led the league in sacks. And Matt Judon still has a chance to do that. It's pretty unlikely that he gets the sack record like TJ Watt did. But what we are seeing is that his consistent ability to get after the quarterback has tapered off a little bit. He has really benefited from the Patriots leading the league in stunts. Bill Belichick is doing a great job scheming these guys up. So I'm not trying to knock Matt Judon. He has been remarkable. That signing has been just like everything for that Patriots defense. Under the radar signing for sure. Getting those guys from Baltimore is just, that's just such a good call for these teams. But on a play-for-play basis, he's not winning one-on-one opportunities like some of these other pass rushers are. So if you're a Patriots fan, you see that 17 sack total. He is tied for the lead at the moment. You might say, oh, he should be 3, 4, or 5. Well, if you look at the other metrics, maybe not so much. But Judon has been fantastic. Then at number 8, Brian Burns, who has burst onto the scene lately. Really since, I don't want to say since Darnold took over, just as a timeline basis, but, Burns wasn't off to the best start necessarily. They were flirting with the idea of trading him, and thank goodness they did not, because if you trade Brian Burns, all that does is create a need at the edge, and you can only dream of finding a player his caliber. And I've debated whether Burns is a true number 1 in years past, but this has been his best year, and I think he has certainly established himself as a true number 1 pass rusher. And the way he moves is just different than other players. He's 6'5", he's got that length, but he sets everything up with that threat of the speed and bend around the outside, and he's won on some beautiful inside moves. He can even occasionally get you with a long arm bull rush. It's not his go-to, but he's really perfected in his craft and maybe can even continue to grow, but definitely worthy of making this top 10 list. Then number 7, fun player here to make this list, Jalen Phillips for the Miami Dolphins. Talk about bursting onto the scene. I think if you just take the last 2 months of football, outside of the top 3 on this list, Jalen Phillips has been the best pass rusher in the NFL. Again, outside of the players that'll end up the top 3 here. He's getting like 6, 7 pressures a game. He's already at 9 sacks. It's crazy. Like the second they traded for Bradley Chubb, he blew up. And I don't know if that's a result of Bradley Chubb being there. I don't know if I've seen anything that indicates that they're necessarily like focused on Bradley Chubb. But honestly, I wonder if the Dolphins would take that trade back now, knowing what Jalen Phillips in year 2 has turned into. He has been a force to be reckoned with for the Miami Dolphins. And you've seen their defense play a little bit better lately as a result of it. Then number 6, I got to hold my hand up and say I was wrong about this signing. Eagles fans, Hassan Reddick has been a monster. He's evolved. He really has. You look at him 2 years ago in Arizona, just a lot of fluky sacks, quarterbacks rolling into him, unblocked pressures. He's a guy that consistently gets like 14, 15 sacks. We saw that change a little bit in Carolina last year, but this year he is breaking out all the stops, all of the pass rush moves. He's showing that speed and bend around the edge. And sure, he benefits from a ridiculously deep defensive line that can push guys into him at times. But his pressure rate is up. His what really stands out to me is that win percentage, winning over a quarter of his true pass rush opportunities. That has not been the case for Hassan Reddick. I think he was down. I might be off here, but I'm pretty sure he was at least in the teens when he was in Arizona getting all those sacks. So that number has gone way up. And just a great signing there. There's a lot of free agents on this list. It's maybe just a fun little thought experiment that paying these edge rushers in free agency seems to be paying dividends. You got Hendrickson, Judon, and Reddick already. And we're going to have another one on this list shortly, but not here at number 5. Max Crosby, who was a top 3 edge rusher last season, really burst onto the scene and has sustained and continued to pay back the Raiders for paying him on that massive contract. There was maybe, I made the video on Max Crosby last year, so impressed, definitely gave him his due as a true defensive player of the year candidate last year. But there was maybe an inkling in the back of my head that, he faced this crazy run last year of backup tackles, maybe an inkling in the back of my head that maybe he was going to take a step down towards being more of a high-end number 2 guy. It just hasn't happened. I mean, he is an alpha edge rusher, one of the 5 best in the league, and he's playing like it. He's paid to do it. He's playing like it on a defense that is just decrepit in terms of talent. Like, that Raiders roster without Max Crosby is a laughing stock on the defensive side of the ball. So another tip of the cap to Max Crosby. The pressure rate is a little bit lower, but the win percentage in those true pass rush snaps, that's when you see that full tool belt really come out. He's got that full package of the ability to convert speed to power, but a bunch of different tactical moves that he'll break out as well, like cross chops, swim moves, spin moves, all stuff I detailed on the film breakdown of them from last year. If you want to check that out, how Max Crosby wins, he's a surgeon in there. Then we have Zadarius Smith, another one of these free agent signings. This is like the second time in his career that Zadarius Smith has been maybe the most valuable free agent signing of his free agent class, going back to when he signed in Green Bay. Now doing it in Minnesota. So happy for Zadarius Smith. The Packers really let him go because he had a kind of scary back injury. And we need to get into our honorable mentions as well. Danielle Hunter is another guy that's going to make the honorable mentions in just a moment. We'll do that after we talk about Z. But 2 guys that had just fluky, kind of scary back injuries. It's why Zadarius Smith kind of had this weird falling out in Green Bay. He signs in Baltimore. Things fall through. It's unclear kind of whether he decommitted or he failed a physical or what really went on there. But the Vikings were like, yeah, we'll take a chance on this guy because when he's healthy, he's one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. And that's only been backed up every time he's out there healthy. He's towards the top in pressures, win percentage. And I love that the Vikings are doing what the Packers did with him and using him a lot of the times as that kind of blitzing linebacker in the A gap, in the B gap. He's too quick for any of these centers and guards that aren't used to handling this kind of skill set, but he's strong enough at 270 plus pounds to hang in the trenches with these guys. It's where he's at his best. He's good from the edge, but he's even better inside, and I love the Vikings are using him there. So Zadarius Smith, 4. And then let's talk about these honorable mentions. Look, it wasn't really realistic to put him in the top 10, but I love this guy too much to not mention him. Josh Uche, who in the last 2 months has taken real starting opportunities as that pass rush specialist, really was not used at all until then in his entire career, really. Showed flashes, sure, but he's been very reminiscent of a player some may remember in Elvis Dumervil, where he's shorter, 6'1", 240 pounds, but the speed, the bend, and then the ability to deploy different pass rush moves off of it. Josh Uche has been insane. The Patriots, low-key, have one of the best pass rushes in the NFL. They just got Christian Barmore back, too. So, got to give Uche a shout-out. Then a couple of injured guys that definitely were on pace to make this list, but unfortunately, after being on a tear, the tear got them. Von Miller and Rashawn Gary, pretty straightforward. Those guys were dominating, kicking ass, taking names, but both two guys with ACL tears. Get well to those guys. Daniil Hunter, who we mentioned, just ever so slightly below Trey Hendrickson along with Josh Sweat. Really could have picked any of those three players for that number 10 spot. They're all pretty dang close, but gave the nod to Hendrickson because his win percentage in those true pass rush snaps, which I put a lot of weight on because that's where I think the film really shows out of how good you are one-on-one winning those opportunities. Hendrickson a step ahead of those other guys. But the top three here, Myles Garrett is a solid third ranking here. This would probably be the consensus. He's not quite where Nick Bosa and Micah Parsons are. Shocker. Those are going to be in some order, are 1 and 2 here. But he's definitely a step ahead of these other guys. Now, he does have the highest win percentage out of anybody on this list. If he gets that one-on-one opportunity, he's winning. Like, it is almost, well, it is literally 1 out of 3. The best on this list. But the total pressure numbers, not quite there with the rest of those guys. So that is going to take him down. But Myles Garrett's ridiculous. Year in, year out, Defensive Player of the Year candidate. But unfortunately for Myles Garrett, 2 other players having even bigger seasons to remove Myles Garrett from that Defensive Player of the Year conversation. So I actually put Bosa second here. Parsons is going to be 1. I got to do a little mental gymnastics here because if I was voting for Defensive Player of the Year, I think it's actually Nick Bosa. And maybe that's just confirmation bias because he was my preseason pick and I want to be right about that. But if you look at how they previously vote on that award, sacks does take a priority over pressures. And I would just say the Niners are in the playoffs because of their defense. The Cowboys' defense is great, and Micah Parsons is a primary reason for that. But the Niners' defense is better. And Bosa's their best player there. So those are, I guess, the arguments for Bosa to be Defensive Player of the Year. But if you look at the total picture, Bosa has missed 2 games, which I factor into the equation here. And Parsons has more pressures, and he has a higher win percentage there. Ever so slightly, but a tough one to pick there. I think you can literally flip a coin, maybe tie them for first. Both guys are absurdly good, and both guys worthy of Defensive Player of the Year. If either of these guys end up winning it, I'm not going to argue it too much. So that's really all there is to it. Those 2 guys are unbelievable. They are absolutely unbelievable. So fun to watch. The best pass rushers at their best. So that is going to do it for this week's Positional Power Rankings. Please do let me know in the comments down below. This is a relatively new series, so let me know what you like about this series, what you don't like. Do you want me to keep putting time and effort into this? If not, let me know. Also, hit that like button if you enjoyed. Make sure you're subscribed. We've got lots of great football content coming just around the corner. Thanks for watching. We'll see you later. Peace out.